Intuitive eating has grown to be a buzzword in the anti-dieting field, but it's so much more than mindful eating. And it can sound too good to be true that eating what you want and when you want it is actually possible. So in today's video, I'm going to provide 10 intuitive eating tips for food freedom so you can stop dieting for good. By the end of this video, you'll have practical strategies to overcome dieting so you can begin practicing intuitive eating today. Managing an eating disorder can be a lonely journey. For in-depth information and strategies for managing your eating disorder, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell in the corner so you're notified when I publish a new video every Wednesday. I'm Meredith MacKenzie of Parallel Wellness. I'm a registered clinical counselor, eating disorders therapist, and doctoral graduate student. In my work with hundreds of clients with eating disorders and disordered eating, I've supported them in loosening the grips of their eating disorder so that they can live fulfilling lives with freedom from food and compensatory behaviors. Now it's your turn. Before we get started, I want to provide a disclaimer. While I am a registered clinical counselor and I'm going to be talking about topics that I do share with my clients in practice, it's important to recognize that this video is for informational and educational purposes only. If you are concerned that you may have an eating disorder, please reach out to a registered professional. So the last couple of weeks, I've been doing this series on intuitive eating by Elise Resch and Evelyn Tribble. And if you're interested in their book and their program on intuitive eating, I highly recommend their book, Intuitive Eating, A Revolutionary Anti-Diet. So I've provided links in the description box down below for that book, as well as the workbook if you're interested in following along and starting your journey at home. My goal with today's video is that in the last few weeks, I have been talking quite a bit about intuitive eating and what the principles are and trying to provide you some information about the psychology behind intuitive eating. And today my goal is to share with you some practical strategies for how you can bring intuitive eating principles into your everyday life. So let's get started with my 10 intuitive eating tips. My first tip is to get rid of all of the dieting tools that are within your environment. If you subscribe to the diet mentality over your lifetime, you likely have cookbooks that are low calorie or low carb. You might also have a Fitbit or a tracker app that you use to count your calories, and recognize that having these tools within your environment is incredibly triggering to the diet mentality. When you start to feel the guilt and the insecurity about what is happening as you start your intuitive eating journey, it is very normal to get scared and say, okay, I don't know if I can actually do intuitive eating, but I know diet mentality. I know what to do with calorie counting. Let me go back to that. And it's a very normal experience and actually part of the recovery process. But if you keep these materials within your home, you're setting yourself up to be triggered and pulled back into that diet mentality. The important piece to recognize with these different types of dieting tools is that they cause us to rely on external cues for hunger, satiation, and what foods we should and shouldn't be eating, rather than really tuning into ourselves and listening to our internal cues, which is a really big part of intuitive eating. I've spoken with many clients who are concerned about weight gain while they're beginning the intuitive eating process, and so they keep their scale around. And this again is one of those tools that can really challenge the intuitive eating process, because the scale again is an external tool that is going to measure something that really is arbitrary, especially as we're eating throughout the day. But it can also cause you to lose faith in yourself. Rather than believing that your body knows what it needs, it causes this insecurity that the scale knows better than me. It can really derail your faith in yourself and bring you back into the dieting mentality. My second tip is to begin tuning into your hunger and satiety cues. And I have two tools for you to use for this one. The first is a hunger scale. And if you look on the internet, there are many types of hunger scales out there. I've provided a link in the description box down below to my Instagram account where you'll find an intuitive eating hunger scale that I've posted. It's not original to me, but I find that it's really helpful because especially if you have engaged in dieting over a long period of time, thinking about those external cues that we rely on in the dieting world, many people can relate to the fact that they start to shut off or tune out of what their body is telling them, because if you've been allotted so many calories per day and you're still hungry, you almost have to shut that feeling down in order to stay on the diet plan that you're on. Or if you're really craving carbohydrates or sugar or another food that is on your no list, then you shut down your body's cravings for those foods, which isn't healthy, it isn't natural, and it isn't listening to what your body's wanting. Tuning into your hunger and satiety cues can take time. And what I like about the intuitive eating hunger scale is that it gives you very clear increments that you can start using at any point of the day. And what's nice about the scale is that there is a range within feeling neutral, not hungry, not satiated, to recognizing that you do start to have a bit of hunger or that you are starting to feel a little full. And you can practice feeling your physiological sensations, identifying your thoughts in these moments, and really practice being mindful as you're eating and recognizing what your body is telling you. The The other tool I want to tell you about, and this is something that I've created and is on my website, is a mindful eating log. And I've provided a link to that in the description box down below. This is a tool that I share in my therapy practice very often with my clients. And rather than tracking calories, what it is a way of tracking your meals, tracking your snacks, and identifying your emotions at the time, as well as your emotional and physical responses to having this meal or snack. So those are two ways that you can begin tapping into your hunger and satiety cues. My next tip, and this might be a little controversial, but it's filtering your social media accounts. Never before in our world have we had such power over the media that we consume. There's hundreds of research studies out there that will tell you that with the advent of television and advertisements, there was an increased experience of women and men feeling less than about themselves based on their body type because of social comparison to what they were seeing in the media. What's amazing about social media is that we have the ability to curate our feeds to fit what it is that we want to see. And it's incredibly tempting, especially because it is validated by our society, to follow Instagram models who really fit into that thin ideal or body ideal that we are hoping to attain. However, our time spent on social media has actually been shown to also impact how we feel about ourselves and our bodies. So my challenge to you is to go through your social media feed, look at the accounts that you're following, and identify how you feel when you look at those feeds. Is it something that makes you feel empowered, uplifted, encouraged? Or do looking at these feeds cause you to feel negatively about yourself, or just sad or disappointed or guilty when you look at them? That is a good personalized gauge for whether or not these are good social media accounts for you to be following. And what I would then suggest is following social media accounts that do align with your values and do align with body positivity, intuitive eating, and the types of things that you are hoping to create in your life. For one example, you can follow me on social media at Parallel Wellness, as well as some other accounts that I love, which are Kenzie Brenna, who's from Canada, Tiffany Ema, as well as Sarah Landry of The Bird's Papaya. These are just a few accounts, and I'm going to try and dig some more up so that I can share them with you and hopefully post them on Instagram. So there are other accounts that you might also follow. And if you have any ideas of accounts that are great examples of body positivity, body love, body acceptance, leave a comment in the comment section down below. I am always trying to curate my own list as well, and it might give ideas to other people who are watching this video. My fourth tip is to begin eating without distractions. A research study was completed where participants were asked to eat while engaging in a minor distraction, playing a solitaire game, which I think most of us can relate to. Scrolling through our Instagram feed, watching a YouTube video over lunch, watching television, anything that really distracts us from the task at hand, which is eating our meal or snack. And what they found in this study was that the people that were engaging in the distracting activity actually ate faster. They tended not to remember what they ate more snacks, and they reported feeling less full than people that ate when they weren't distracted. It also ended up impacting the food that they ate later in the day, with them choosing larger meal sizes. The point of this isn't to say that what they did was wrong, or that the food amounts that they were eating was wrong, or the way they were eating was wrong. It's just that when we are distracted, even minimally, we're not able to tune into our body. The cues that our body gives can be really subtle sometimes, and it doesn't take long to go from feeling satiated to feeling overly full. But if we're not paying attention to those cues, we're not able to recognize when we've actually had enough to eat. With this tip, I also want to recognize that so many of us use both eating and distracted eating to help us cope with different emotions that we're feeling during the day. And the key point of that is that we tend to want to zone out, and we pair that with eating. And when we pair zoning out with eating, it's really a way of escaping from our emotions rather than separating the two. So eating, which is vital to our life, and taking care of our emotions on the other hand. And I'm going to get into emotions in another tip, but this is a really important thing to recognize, that when we're looking to distract ourselves while eating, there might also be an emotional component to it that's important to tune into and really address. Now, my fifth tip is to eat regularly. And for the majority of people, especially when they're starting out or they may have been struggling with binge eating, is to eat 3 meals and 2 to 3 snacks per day. The benefit of eating regularly is that it allows you to practice tuning into your hunger and satiety cues without going to extremes, which is really common for anyone who experiences binge eating. Rather than restricting yourself, holding off on eating, and then eating quite a bit all at once, by eating more frequently throughout the day, one, you manage your blood sugar, which is really beneficial, but it also allows you more opportunities to practice and tune into how your body feels when it's hungry, as it's approaching that hunger, as well as it's approaching fullness. This is also a really great way to begin trusting the signals that your body gives to you. So often clients in my practice, as they begin intuitive eating, they back off on the restriction or they try to step back from binge eating, is that there's a lot of fear that if they don't hold on tight to the rules that they've had in place, that they will lose control. And it's really important in that process to begin learning to trust yourself. So this is a really great way to do that. For anyone out there who has begun their intuitive eating journey and is finding some success with this, I'm really curious about what tips you have. So if you have a tip for intuitive eating and incorporating intuitive eating principles into your daily life, leave a comment in the comment section down below and tell me what it is. Not only will it help me, but it'll also help the others who are viewing this video and want to learn more about intuitive eating. My next intuitive eating tip is to focus on gentle nutrition. And I talked about this in my video on the food police, which you can watch right here. And that is that your nutrition ally is the part of you that does have knowledge about nutrition and wellness and foods that taste great and are also nutritionally packed. And how we can take that information to inform what it is we're eating, balancing that emotional need for some of the really tasty, yummy things and our favorite foods, our comfort foods, and balancing that with some of the foods that we know we're going to provide great nutrition for us. So focusing on balanced nutrition involves the tenets of food wisdom, which includes eating a variety of foods, eating foods in moderation, as well as balancing what it is that we're eating. But I can also recommend Abby Sharp, who is a registered dietitian within Canada, and she knows lots of information about intuitive eating and how to incorporate this into the nutrition that we're eating, and I'd highly recommend her channel for this topic. My next tip is to incorporate fear foods into your diet. And for anybody who is in recovery from binge eating disorder or another eating disorder, it's really important to assess when you are ready for this. Particularly for anyone who's experienced binge eating, it's important to recognize and be aware of when you are vulnerable and when you are feeling strong enough to try some of these fear foods. Vulnerability can look like a number of different things. It could be feeling overly hungry, or it could also be an emotional state such as feeling overly stressed or sad or any other emotional state that feels extreme and might draw you or typically trigger you into binge eating. So be aware of this, but when you are feeling strong and you're not in a vulnerable place, that's a great time to incorporate fear foods into a meal or a snack. My next tip is to practice body acceptance. And what I want to emphasize is that body acceptance is not necessarily body love. It's about accepting where you're currently at, recognizing that sure, maybe this is not where you'd like to be, you'd maybe like your body to be different, but to just recognize that this is where you are and that this is a body that you can love and respect and do things out of care for. Some ways that you can do this would be to focus on the function of your body and what it allows you to do. These are not things that have anything to do with how I aesthetically look, but it's things that within this body I am capable of doing and it feels good. And by engaging in intuitive eating principles, you're gradually teaching your body that it's worth your love, and it becomes a practice. Now my next step, and I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, is to cope with your emotions. That's a huge part of intuitive eating. We're not robots. We're not able to just follow a list of ingredients and foods and simply track them in an app and be happy for the rest of our lives. That's not possible. We are so much more complex than that, and a big part of what motivates and triggers overeating and binge eating is emotions. One of my common ways of encouraging clients to do this is journaling. Journal everything. Journal in the morning, journal in the afternoon, journal before you eat. Really tap into how you're feeling and what it is that emotion is telling you that you need. And when you know what it is you need, do that. Do whatever it is your body needs based on that current emotional state. Typically, what we do is we resort to food. We either restrict our food or we eat more. And what we need to start doing is meeting that emotional need where it's at, rather than making it about our bodies and hunger. And my final tip is moving your body for pleasure and health. And this is another tip where you're going to need to do a self-assessment and identify, am I maybe moving too much out of a disordered eating habit or pattern where I'm attempting to burn calories and that's what my focus is, that's what my drive is? Or am I potentially avoidant of exercise and movement because I've got some other emotional stuff going on and it's challenging for me to get my body moving? What is important to look for is what exercise or movement results in your body and your emotions feeling good. That's typically moderate exercise. Again, it can look different for different people, and it's activities that you enjoy doing. It doesn't have to be formalized exercise. It's just movement, getting your blood flowing and moving your body. So those are my 10 intuitive eating tips for bringing these intuitive eating principles that we've been talking about for the last few weeks into your daily life. If you're curious for more on this topic, I have a series on this channel on intuitive eating, as well as a series on binge eating and the binge eating cycle that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, be sure to subscribe, and share it with your friends or anyone that you think would benefit from learning more about intuitive eating or binge eating and eating disorders. I look forward to seeing you in the next video on Wednesday.